And we have breaking news. Cassie Ventura is now on the stand in the Sean Diddy Combs sex trafficking trial. Among other things, the singer is expected to address the 2016 video of Combs attacking her in a hotel when she was his girlfriend. Combs has pleaded not guilty. His attorneys argue the video is evidence of jealousy, not sex trafficking. And now for the first time, jurors are hearing what Cassie has to say about that and other aspects of their 10-year relationship. Let's bring in ABC's Rena Roy at the courthouse and Eva Pilgrim, anchor of ABC News Live's new daily show, Burden of Proof, the case against Diddy, for more. Rena, what's the latest from court?
Well, Diane, prosecutors have wasted no time getting right into the alleged abuse that Cassie Ventura says she endured for years. Ventura telling jurors, quote, "He would bash my head, knock me over, drag me, kick me, stomp me in the head when I was down." She also got into the nature of those so-called freak-offs, saying that they involved hiring an escort and they performed under the direction of Combs, saying that they happened so frequently it eventually became a job for her to set them up. Ventura said she did not feel she had much of a choice but to participate, that she feared that Combs would retaliate or potentially blackmail her if she did not. And she's had at times to take, she's taken deep breaths, pausing her testimony. Combs appearing to be listening pretty passively with his hands in his lap at the defense table there. Now, remember, this is the first time that they are seeing each other face to face since 2018. You can imagine that emotions are very high in the courtroom right now. And this is expected to be a very lengthy testimony. Prosecutors bracing the courtroom for what's to come as she continues to testify, including videos of these alleged freak-offs.
The fourth day of Sean Diddy Combs' federal trial has opened with an intense atmosphere in the courtroom as his ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura takes the stand. Cassie's testimony has quickly turned the proceedings into a dramatic and high-stakes legal battle. The trial, which has already drawn considerable attention, continues to expose startling and personal details of the 10-year relationship between the former couple.
Diane.
And Eva, Cassie's expected to face a lot of questions. It's expected to be a long questioning from both the prosecution and the defense. What are you watching for both sides, given how critical her testimony is for this case?
Well, I think we're going to learn a lot about the nature of Cassie's relationship with Diddy. Some of those details we've seen in prior lawsuits, but to hear her on the stand actually giving those details, reliving those moments herself. Also, you have to remember, she's very pregnant right now. So I'm going to be curious to see how long she makes it on the stand, how she's emotionally able to weather all of these questions. And what's going to be interesting to watch is, you know, the defense from the very start in their opening statement said that she chose to be there.
Cassie, visibly pregnant, calmly began her testimony, detailing the controlling and manipulative nature of her relationship with Diddy. As she spoke, she revealed a chilling pattern of emotional and physical abuse, recounting how Diddy dictated not only her career decisions, but also her personal life, from what she wore to where she went. The room was silent, every eye fixed on her as she spoke, while the defense team kept their gaze locked on her with a mixture of disbelief and skepticism.
She walked in there, Rachel. She had on a brown dress, form-fitting, visibly pregnant, head held high, and did not make any eye contact with the defendant, with Sean Combs. She said that Sean Combs directed everything from what she had on to the lighting in the room to how she was supposed to interact with the person that she was having sex with. And again, just to reiterate what is a freak-off, the freak-off essentially was something that Cassie said she learned about through Sean Combs about a year into their relationship. He described it as voyeurism, wanting to watch her have sex with someone else. And she said that she did it because she was 22, 21. She was young. She didn't know any better, and that she wanted to please Sean Combs.
Among other things, the singer is expected to address the 2016 video of Combs attacking her in a hotel when she was his girlfriend. Combs has pleaded not guilty. His attorneys argue the video is evidence of jealousy, not sex trafficking. And now for the first time, jurors are hearing what Cassie has to say about that and other aspects of their 10-year relationship.
Her lawyer, Samantha Holt, sat beside her, offering gentle encouragement, glancing up at the jury with quiet determination. Samantha's calm but steady presence seemed to help Cassie maintain composure as she recounted the incidents. Each more horrifying than the last. He made me feel like everything I did, everything I was somehow his. He controlled my choices, my career, even who I spoke to. If I stepped out of line, he'd remind me of the consequences.
Questions about, was this her choice, or did she feel like she had to do all of these things?
And I know they promised to take breaks in order to accommodate her throughout the course of this questioning. And I want to bring in our legal analyst, former trial attorney Terry Austin, for more, because Terry, what Cassie's describing here, right? How this whole thing started. She wanted to make her boyfriend happy, then talking about his violence against her. She says at some point blackmail materials came into play. How damning is this for the defense, and how do you expect them to counter this?
I think what the defense is going to say is that this wasn't blackmail. This was not coercion. This was consensual. We know that Cassie started out with Sean Combs as an early person, with someone who is trying to get her career started, and he was going to help her. That's what the defense is going to say, that she was starting out and wanted someone to support her. They did their first record deal together. That's something I think the defense is going to focus on, and had it not been for Sean Combs, she wouldn't be where she is right now. The prosecution obviously is saying he was in control. It may have started out.
The defense lawyer, David Stone, a sharp and calculating figure, immediately objected. He stood up, leaning over the table, his voice booming in contrast to Cassie's fragile delivery. Objection, Your Honor. This is pure conjecture. We need facts, not dramatizations. The judge, Judge Mariana Allen, a woman in her early 50s with an air of stern authority, glanced down at Stone. Sustained. Keep your statements to factual evidence, Ms. Ventura. Stone sat back down, trying to suppress a smirk, while Cassie took a deep breath and continued, her voice a little shakier but resolute. It wasn't just emotional. There were times when I feared for my life. There were times when he hurt me. As Cassie continued to testify, her voice occasionally cracked with emotion. She spoke of the deep psychological toll her relationship with Diddy had taken on her. The emotional abuse, she explained, was just as damaging as the physical. Violence. She revealed that she had kept.
And Eva, your new ABC News Live daily show, The Burden of Proof, The Case Against Diddy, airs nightly at 5:30 Eastern. What can we expect tonight?
I think it's the color in the courtroom. There's no cameras, there's no audio, so we can't see and hear for ourselves if you're not sitting in the courtroom. But we here at ABC have eyes and ears inside that courtroom. So it's the testimony, how the person delivered those statements, the reaction in the courtroom. Cassie's husband is going to be in that courtroom listening to her talk about all those things today. How does he respond to it? How does Diddy respond to it?
And it's the first time Diddy and Cassie have seen each other in several years.
Like 18 years, I believe, is the last time they saw each other, right? So that's going to be really interesting to watch.
Since 2018.
Since 2018, sorry. Yes, excuse me. 2018 was the last time they saw each other. So, all of those things, what is there tension? The jury, what's the jury's response? They're going to be playing video in court today. Watch the jurors, see how they watch that video. Could they watch the video? We'll be able to have some of that color so people can hear exactly what's going on in the courtroom.
So interesting.
Cassie's words brought a visible change in the demeanor of the jurors. Juror Nurse 7, a middle-aged woman, wiped her eyes discreetly. Clearly affected by Cassie's testimony, Juror Mar 4, a man in his 30s, glanced at the table of exhibits, his fingers, nervously tapping against the edge as he processed the overwhelming evidence. I have proof. I kept everything. I saved every message, every call. I kept it all because I knew one day I would need to tell the truth.
From September 2022 to November 2023, during which time we recorded hours of video and audio of Combs' staff and others engaged in serious illegal activity.
Reads a lot like what we saw in the R. Kelly case in the EDNY, where they're talking about this being a criminal enterprise that's all feeding towards this one individual's depravity of wanting drugs and sex and rock and roll and everything in between, that everyone seemed to know and go out and facilitate what Sean Diddy Combs wanted. Even in part of these allegations or these complaints, they call his chief of staff the Ghislaine Maxwell to P. Diddy's Jeffrey Epstein, saying that this was a total sexual enterprise to feed into his desires.
To raise $50,000.
Right.
To sue Puffy.
Right.
For payment for music he produced.
Right.
That I guess he didn't have a contract for to get paid.
They say he's credited on the album, but I think he's not getting like royalties from it. I think he just like played a guitar and did some engineering work on it, but he feels like he should got royalties and he didn't. He just had his name on the album. So he was trying to raise the money so he could sue Puff for his royalties. That didn't go nowhere. And then he comes out with this, well, all this stuff happened during the...
From the corner of the room, Evan Goldstein, a journalist from a prominent news outlet, scribbled down quick notes. He had been covering the case since the beginning, but the gravity of Cassie's words seemed to hit him in a different way now. Don't know if we fully understood what we were getting into when we started covering this trial. This is brutal. As Cassie continued, Stone and Royce huddled together, their whispers growing more urgent. Stone, frustrated by the direction the testimony was taking, rose to object once more. "Objection, Your Honor. This line of questioning is leading. The witness is becoming emotional and speculative."
He said, "They are all lies. This is a clear example of a desperate person taking desperate measures in hopes of a payday. There will be legal consequence for all defamatory statements made about the Combs family." The attorney for Combs said Jones' reckless name dropping about events that are pure fiction and simply did not happen is nothing more than a transparent attempt to garner headlines.
The disclaimer is he said that Puff didn't pay him for his beat and his publishing from that last album.
Yeah.
And prior to this, he had a GoFundMe trying to raise $50,000 to get a lawyer to sue Puff for his publishing.
Okay.
That didn't work, so he filed this.
Sustained. Please limit your testimony to events you can prove with evidence, Ms. Ventura. Cassie paused, taking another breath before proceeding, unfazed by the interruptions. "I have proof. I kept everything. I saved every message, every call. I kept it all because I knew one day I would need to tell the truth." The courtroom fell into a tense silence as Cassie's lawyer, Samantha Holt, nodded and motioned to the courtroom staff to begin presenting the evidence. A projector flashed on the screen, showing a series of text messages between Cassie and Diddy. The texts were disturbing, filled with threats, accusations, and attempts to control her every move.
Yeah, Stephanie, I think the defense is going to look for people who are open to non-traditional lifestyles, who can receive evidence of what defense will sort of style as sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and not get put off and not rush to judgment. On the flip side, the prosecution is going to be looking for folks who are not going to be distracted by, the new shiny object over here, who are not going to get off course by any kind of circus the Diddy team may try to bring into this trial.
So, I mean, this has garnered much media attention. How does that factor in when it comes to selecting a jury? Because no doubt most people have heard of what is going on.
Totally. So it presents a significant problem. Here's the thing. The judge wants to find jurors who are fair and impartial and who have not already developed an opinion as to Diddy's guilt or innocence. Well, that's hard when every media outlet in the world has covered this case. They've likely already heard about it. And so what the judge is going to have to do is determine how much exposure the potential jurors have had to this Diddy saga and whether they can put that aside and simply base their verdict on what happens inside that courtroom and not everything that has gone on preceding that.
One of the most damning moments of the trial came when Cassie described a hotel incident that had remained secret until now. She spoke of an altercation with Diddy at the Four Seasons Hotel following an after-party. According to Cassie, Diddy's jealousy flared when he saw her speaking with another music executive. The situation quickly escalated into violence, with Diddy reportedly dragging her through the hotel lobby, leaving visible marks on her body. The defense team immediately rose to their feet in protest.
Some point in time, she actually had said that she looked forward to the freak-offs. Why did Cassie express looking forward to these said freak-offs?
When the prosecution asked her, was there ever a time that you enjoyed the freak-offs? This is when Cassie got choked up and she said, "I did, but only because I got to spend one-on-one time with Combs and I really did love him."
And that is speaking to the psychological abuse in addition to the physical abuse that she potentially experienced.
Yeah, she's definitely laying out someone who was young, who was influenced by wanting to have this record career. She signed a 10-album deal with Bad Boy Entertainment, led by Sean Combs, and basically describes being enamored by Sean Combs, loving him, not knowing about certain things sexually and him sort of telling her, teaching her about that. And what you hear is someone that was young and said, and she even said, I was young, I was naive, I didn't know any better. But she's really telling the story of someone who thought she was going to be with someone in this music industry that was going to help her career, that cared about her, but quickly learned after the freak-offs that wasn't the case. And what I thought was also interesting is she said that after that first freak-off, she said she felt dirty. She didn't want to do it. And when she brought up the idea of having a conversation about the freak-offs in an email, which the jurors saw, she said she backpedaled in the email because Combs responded by saying, I know, you don't want to do it. And she said, oh, no, well, it's not that. But that was the beginning. That was in 2010, where she brings up in an email that she wanted to have a conversation about this. And in her words, she didn't want to do it, but she felt like she had to.
Objection! This incident is completely unsubstantiated and irrelevant to the case at hand. Judge Allen, however, overruled the objection, and the video footage from the hotel lobby was displayed for the jury to see. The footage showed a struggle. Cassie's arm being pulled violently as she tried to break free. Her bruises, visible in the grainy footage, told a story of their own. He pulled me through the lobby like I was nothing. People saw, but no one helped. I was scared. I didn't know who to turn to. As the day wore on, the strain on Diddy was evident. His previously confident and composed demeanor gave way to visible signs of distress. He nervously shifted in his seat and glanced at his legal team, exchanging hurried notes. At one point, in an apparent outburst of frustration, Diddy slammed his hand on the table. The gesture only heightened the growing unease in the courtroom.
Cassie's relationship with Diddy. Some of those details we've seen in prior lawsuits, but to hear her on the stand actually giving those details, reliving those moments herself. Also, you have to remember, she's very pregnant right now. So I'm going to be curious to see how long she makes it on the stand, how she's emotionally able to weather all of these questions. And what's going to be interesting to watch is, the defense from the very start in their opening statement said that she chose to be there. So I'm going to be curious to see how she responds to questions about, was this her choice or did she feel like she had to do all of these things?
I think what made Cassie emotional is having to describe the details of the freak-off and why she did it. When she talked about wanting to do it to please Sean Combs, that's when she broke down. Up until that point, she had just been answering the questions. She's a little soft-spoken at times, but that's when she got emotional. When she had to answer the question about if she enjoyed it, that's when she broke down, because she said, I enjoyed being with Sean Combs. And she says, I did it because it made him happy.
What did the expressions of the jurors look like?
Claudia Royce turned to him, placing a hand on his arm to calm him down. She whispered something into his ear, but it was too late. The jurors had already noticed his outburst, and some looked at him with raised eyebrows. As the courtroom drama continued, a new figure emerged. Detective Michael Hayes, an investigator with the police department, who had been involved in the investigation of Cassie's allegations. He was called to testify, his demeanor professional and unshaken.